Welcome everyone to another Observability Lab. I'm back with Thomas Brandl. Servus, Thomas.
Hey Andy, how are you?
Good, good. Last time I had you on the lab and you showed us a dashboard that you built where you were analyzing log patterns. Now I brought you back because recently we kind of have our offices next to each other, and sometimes I peek in and see what he's demoing. And you showed me this dashboard that provides a really cool service overview that you have been building for our users, and they're also using it in their different environments. And I thought, Thomas, I would like to have you on the show again and just explain, why did you build this dashboard? What does it do? And then maybe go into some details in how users are using it. That would be my quest for you today.
Sure, of course, Andy. Yeah, so thanks for having me again. So this dashboard that I've built here is really there to just give you an overview over all your services, uh, make use of it to slice and dice your data, figure out about any kind of problems, but then also like optimize your services once you have gone through all the problems that Davis has already told you about. So if I look at this whole dashboard, so it really starts at like a 10,000 feet view, giving you an overview of everything that's happening in your environment. But then we also go into like the more detailed kind of things, like what are the different kind of requests that are failing? What is the health of my environment in terms of infrastructure? And then last but not least, it also adds some information around the logs that are there that are being generated by my application. So this is like really a dashboard that I can use to analyze my services from end to end, starting with this high level view, but then going in the like more the details of it.
I really like this. And especially, I think this is a general best practice when people look at dashboards. And first of all, folks, we have a lot of apps: a services app, a logs app, a traces app, a Kubernetes app. And these apps already provide out of the box visualizations and give you specific use cases on a click by click basis. But as we all know, and I think this is, Thomas, why you built this dashboard, people have their own requirements and their own needs to analyze their specific data. And so dashboards are extremely powerful to actually get this done. I like that on the very top, you start with what is going on. Is there any problem? Then like kind of like following the red trail and then going deeper down. Thomas, I would like now to get a little bit more details on what people can do with this dashboard. By the way, folks, this dashboard is also on the Playground tenant. Find the link in the video description so you can see all the different queries behind the scenes. I'm sure, Thomas, you will talk about some of the variables you have here, so the concept of filtering. But without further ado, maybe you can walk us a little bit through some of the things you've built here and how people can actually use this dashboard.
Sure, Andy. Yeah, so we start with like this 10,000 feet view, as I said, right? So what's the most critical things that I need to understand about my services? First and foremost, are there any kind of problems that Davis has detected, right? So if there is a problem and an anomaly in the behavior of my application, this is of course the very first thing that I need to look at. But then we also have a look at the golden signals of my services. So what is the failure rate? What is the number of requests per minute? What is the median response time? What is like the outliers, the 90th percentile and the 99th percentile in terms of response time for my services? And that's like, as I said, it's very, very high level. So it's across your whole environment. Of course, this is where slicing and dicing the data becomes important. And the way how you can slice and dice data in Dynatrace is, of course, using segments. So like one simple way of how I can directly slice and dice my data here is that I use some of my filter segments that I have defined. So in my case, I have, for example, a segment defined for the host groups. So if I say, for example, I want to see only the data for my EKS host group and apply this, then straight away, of course, this whole dashboard gets filtered down. I can see now that I don't have any more problems, but maybe I should look at these outliers because, yeah, there are some requests that are taking almost 5 seconds. So by slicing and dicing the data, I can really make sure that a dashboard also becomes reusable and that I can, yeah, just look into the things in more detail. So of course, using the segments is just one way of slicing and dicing the data. What we are also using in this dashboard here is those different kind of filter variables. So, for example, and I believe that is a question that I still get a lot of times from customers that are using Dynatrace for a longer time. So in Dynatrace, in the older generation of Dynatrace, we had this concept of management zones for filtering down the dashboards, and that still exists here as well, right? So I can say, for example, I only want to see the data that is related to my easy trade management zone, so I can still use these kind of filters here as well to look at that as well. But I have all these options of just understanding what's going on in my environment here and slicing and dicing the data.
Cool. Just a recap and also a reminder, folks, dashboards, we had a couple of sessions already in general about dashboards with the product team. Segments on the top right that you showed earlier basically filters the data up front before it gets passed to any of the tiles, and then the variables can be used in the individual queries. You can reference the variables. And again, as an encouragement for you, if you are looking into this dashboard or into any other dashboard that is using variables, just look behind the scenes, look at the tiles, look at the query, and see how these variables are then used. Also, how the variables itself get populated. Variables can have either static lists, but can also be the result of a query, even the result of a TypeScript execution. So really powerful stuff, and great to see that you have included the management zone filter, because as you said, it's coming up quite a bit with our long-term customers.
Exactly. So yeah, and of course, when it comes to slicing and dicing the data, sometimes it's also just about sorting, right? So for example, if I look at my problems, what are like the most critical problems to me? So one way of looking at this is like, for example, sorting by the number of affected users, right? So the problems that are affecting the most of my users are more critical to me, other than looking at the problems that are not affecting anyone anyways, right? In a similar way, I could also look at it from like how many services are actually affected currently and sort by this. So this way I can also like concentrate on the most critical problems that are happening in my environment today. And then of course, when it comes to dashboards, they should always be actionable. So what I've put in there into this dashboard is here some direct links. So if I want to analyze this problem here, for example, then I can just click on it straight away with a single click. It brings me to like the details of this particular problem and tells me about this issue. And I have everything that I need to analyze this problem here at my fingertips straight away without having to do like a lot of investigation by myself. That's really the cool thing, that you can really action on this dashboard straight away and make use of this information that I have in there.
Pretty cool. And then I know, again, links, we've covered this in some of the previous videos as well. Links like this can be done through a feature that's called visualizing cells in a table as markdown. So you really have full capability of providing text and then a link. So markdown is super powerful here for these things. Yeah.
Exactly. And I mean, just making a whole dashboard actionable is always important, right? So for example, if I want to really look at the data here, I mean, one of the things that I also did here is that I added some time series. The time series are always important to look at in terms of figuring out about outliers in terms of your data. So for example, if I look at this here, I see that there is this iFinance service, which apparently is having a very high failure rate. So I can at any point in time just look at specific parts of this application here, look at it in like a more detailed kind of view. And of course, in Dynatrace, I have always the option to open a certain record with and look at this line here, look at, for example, okay, I want to see all the different traces that are happening on this particular service during a timestamp, or I just analyze the failure rate directly from here. So having this really actionable, I believe, is a really critical thing in here.
And also a reminder, because you said it's the open record with. There's open with and open record with. Open with is you can basically open up that whole, let's say, a chart and give it to a different app. For instance, put this into another dashboard, into a notebook, or you can click on an individual record. Like in your case, it was a metric on a chart. And that record will then be passed on to another app that might open up this particular failure, this particular problem, this particular whatever it is. So two options to then really navigate and take over that context into the next step. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I mean, when it then comes to like further analysis, right? So we can also have a look at like the single endpoints, understand the golden signals again for these endpoints. So if I look at this here, again, I believe the sorting is crucial here. So usually when you start optimizing an environment, you first look at the failures, because failures is like, yeah, if it's a hard fail and the user cannot do what they want to do, that's the first thing that you need to fix. If it's slow, that's still bad, but it's something that you might be able to live with a little longer. So I just started here with sorting by the failure rate. And then, of course, if I have some failures here, then I can just say, okay, well, I want to analyze this further. Again, have a link in here, and that directly brings me into the failure analysis for this particular kind of exception, where I can see exactly, okay, what is the exception that's happening here? Is there any kind of logs that support this as well? So by understanding what's going on in there, this is already a really, really helpful kind of thing. And I have here like the links to the most commonly used kind of analysis actions. But again, if one of them is not fitting your needs, then you can just say, okay, I want to open this record with again, and you can go into one of the other apps, look at it from like the response time hotspots, or directly doing the method hotspots to look at the profiling data. So you have everything here at your fingertips and just directly make use of the data. And of course, you can not only do this on like the profiling data, but we can also have a look at the infrastructure data. So let's say I want to understand, okay, what are these garbage collections here all about, right? Then you can just say, okay, well, let's have a look at that. I can again open this, look at this process here in detail. And for example, if I want to understand then, okay, what is it that is actually triggering these garbage collections, then I can just have a look at the suspension times and look at that straight here from our memory profiling. So just being able to action on those different kind of things, I believe that's always crucial.
It's amazing. I mean, we've been with Dynatrace for so long and we know all of these capabilities, but it's amazing to see how actionable you now make the dashboard. So you build a custom dashboard with a particular metric like memory, and then from there, you can then directly go to the memory profiling. It's really fantastic. Really cool stuff.
Absolutely. So yeah, and if I go back to my dashboard, then again, so I believe still, especially when it comes to the health of services, it's logs are part of service health, right? So I want to understand, okay, what's going on there in my logs. So in a previous session that Andy and I did, we had a look at the different kind of log patterns that are in there. So analyzing these log patterns can be really, really helpful. And then of course, I can also take one of these logs here and look at it in a more detailed way by just, again, opening this record with, going into like distributed trace, looking at how this actually works from a topology perspective. I have all these different options straight there at my fingertips for analyzing my logs and really making sure that I have everything in there that I need.
Perfect. And I think this reminds me of the dashboard you showed the other day, where the log status on the top left, the variable comes into play. I think you can select what are you really interested in. Yeah.
If I only want to see the infos in here, for example, yeah, that's of course also possible. So yeah, you have the ways to look at that and search within the logs. So all of that is straight at your fingertips, and you can slice and dice the data here again.
Very cool. Thomas, well, thank you so much for not only building this dashboard, showing what's possible, but also sharing it with us. So folks, remember, you get this dashboard on the Playground tenant, follow the link, download it, import it in your own tenant, also give us feedback. Just leave a comment or go to the community.dynatrace.com, leave a comment there in the forums. And yeah, I think with this, I wanted to say thanks again.
Thank you as well, Andy. And just as a call to action from my side, really make this dashboard your own. You can put in any kind of data, your own KPIs on it. That's what makes dashboards powerful. That it's not just an app that we have built, but that you can actually be the hero here and make sure that you visualize the data in any way that you would like to have it.
Perfect. Thank you, Thomas.
Thank
See
you,
you next
everyone,
time.
and see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.